The courtroom was dead silent when he stood up. Just a janitor. That's what they all saw. A man in his 50s with a bent back, worn uniform, and callous hands gripping a mop like it was a crutch. The prosecutor rolled her eyes, lips curling into a smake. "We're not doing this," she said sharply. "Your Honor, this man isn't on any witness list. He's the custodian." The judge raised a brow, gavel poised. "Mr. Raines, you're requesting to testify." Carl nodded once. "Yes, Your Honor, I was there the night the boy was killed." Gasps rippled through the room. Defense counsel turned in his seat. The prosecutor stood frozen, throat bobbing. The judge motioned. "Proceed." Carl stepped forward, slow but deliberate. He didn't need notes. He'd been rehearsing this moment in his head for 9 months, ever since they arrested Deshaun Ellis for a murder he didn't commit. Carl had cleaned the same courthouse for 18 years, watched hundreds of cases, mopped floors, scrubbed blood out of tile, and took out the trash full of secrets. No one asked questions. No one noticed him. That night, he saw everything. It was raining. Hard. He remembered because a boy, Deshaun, had come in soaked, hoodie dripping, hand shaking. He'd been in the lobby, waiting for his sister, who was typing late in the record archives. Carl was waxing the floors. Then the shouting started in Judge Holloway's office. A voice, a girl's, screaming, "Get off me!" The crash of a chair. Silence. And then the door flew open, and Trevor Voss stormed out, blood on his collar, rage in his eyes. He didn't see Carl by the vending machine. No one ever did. Trevor Voss, son of the district attorney, football scholarship, local royalty. They found the girl, Madison Lane, 30 minutes later in the alley, dead, strangled. But the cameras were down. The footage was deleted. And Deshaun, black, hoodie, no alibi, was walking nearby. That was all they needed. Carl looked at the jury now. Their faces were expectant, skeptical. He wasn't educated. He wasn't polished. But he knew what the truth felt like. It sat heavy in your chest until you spit it out or choke on it. The prosecutor, Delancey, interrupted. "Objection, Your Honor. This is hearsay. He's not a credible witness." Carl turned to her. His voice didn't rise. He didn't flinch. "You remember the mop closet next to Judge Holloway's chambers? It's got a vent that runs directly into the wall. I was there. I heard everything." He pulled a folded piece of paper from his pocket, and I wrote it down, word for word. The judge frowned. "You took notes." "I take notes on everything. Always have." Carl gave a half shrug. "Got a head like a sieve otherwise. I keep journals, every shift I've ever worked." He placed the paper on the stand. Trevor said, and I quote, "If you say anything, I'll ruin you. No one will believe you over me anyway." That's what he told her. Madison. A cold wind of realization swept across the room. Judge Holloway's jaw tightened. Prosecutor Delancey looked like someone had pulled the floor out from under her. Carl looked over at Deshaun, young, trembling, shoot 2 sizes too big, eyes wide with disbelief. "I didn't know if I should speak," Carl said softly. Felt like shouting into a void. "But that boy didn't do it. I saw him. I saw him." The silence cracked. Delancey scrambled. "That's not admissible. He's not a legal professional. He's a janitor with no." And that's when Carl stepped forward, pulled a laminated card from his back pocket, and held it up. "My name is Carl Raines, former digital forensics officer, retired after a heart attack. I took this janitor job to stay moving, keep my benefits. I also taught a cyber investigations class at Westbridge for 3 years. You can call them." The room broke. Audibly, murmurs turned into stunned conversation. Carl wasn't just a janitor. He was trained, experienced, and he just flipped the entire case. Judge Holloway turned to the prosecutor. "Did your office vet this witness?" Delancey was pale. We were told he was just custodial staff." "Looks like someone's bias got in the way of doing their job," Carl muttered. Loud enough. Sharp enough. Deshaun's lawyer stood, fire in his eyes for the first time in weeks. Your Honor, I request immediate access to the surveillance maintenance logs in Carl Raines' journals. If he documented detail consistent with the crime scene, details that weren't made public, then this court has suppressed critical evidence. Delancey tried to speak, but the judge raised a hand. Motion granted. He turned to Carl. We'll need you on record, Mr. Raines. Prepare to testify under oath. Carl nodded. For the first time in years, his hands didn't shake. Later that night, Carl sat on the courthouse steps with Deshawn's sister, Nia. She was still crying. Not out of sadness, but relief. You didn't have to do that, she said, wiping her eyes. Yeah, Carl said quietly. But someone had to. She looked at him like she was seeing a stranger. You let them treat you like a ghost. Why? He shrugged. People don't look twice at the janitor. That used to bother me. Now I think maybe that's how I see the things no one else can. From behind them, flashbulbs popped. Reporters were gathering. Carl stood slowly, looking down the courthouse steps. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Trevor Voss hadn't been arrested yet. But now, the world was watching. And Carl Raines, the janitor they mocked, had just taken the stage. The courtroom was different now. Brighter, sharper, as if the walls themselves had started listening. Trevor Voss sat stiff back at the defense table, flanked by two high-priced attorneys in tailored suits and ice-cold stays. He didn't smirk like he used to, didn't roll his eyes or play with his cufflinks like he had during the first hearings when the target had been Deshawn Ellis. Now he was a defendant. And Carl Raines, the janitor with a mop and a memory like a vault, was back on the witness stand. But this time, the room looked at him differently. Gone were the sneers. Gone were the chuckles behind hands. Now, even Judge Holloway leaned forward, pen poised, gaze heavy. The prosecutor, a federal attorney flown in after the corruption scandal broke, paced slowly across the courtroom. Her voice was calm, clinical. Mr. Raines, can you explain how you came to possess the recovered footage from the security archives? Footage the district attorney's office claimed was deleted. Carl nodded. I can. I back up data. Old habit from my digital forensics days. I noticed the deletion activity on a log file weeks after the incident, and I pulled a recovery using forensic tools from an old laptop I still have at home. You did this on your own time, she asked, raising a brow. Carl just looked at her. That girl deserved better than silence. So did Deshawn. From the audience bench, Nia Ellis clutched her brother's hand. Deshawn, now exonerated, had been cleared officially 2 days prior, when Carl's logs, Madison Lane's messages, and the recovered footage exposed a different truth. Trevor Voss hadn't just assaulted Madison. He'd tried to cover it up, with help, evidence tampering, false reports, a deleted call log from the judge's chambers the night of the murder, a long trail of power and protection, and now, the real trial had begun. Trevor's lawyer, Delaney Mott, rose slowly. He was silver-haired and shark-eyed, the kind of man who made a living burying truths under reasonable doubt. Mr. Raines, he said smoothly, you're asking this court to believe that for months you listened, watched, documented, and backed up data, but said nothing. Isn't it true that you only came forward after public pressure mounted? Carl didn't blink. I came forward when Deshawn's life was on the line, and I never stopped collecting. I knew no one would listen to a janitor with a spiral notebook. I needed more than memory. I needed proof. Mott smirked. You're suggesting conspiracy between Judge Holloway, Trevor Voss, and the former district attorney. That's quite the accusation. Carl tilted his head. Not an accusation. A pattern. He pulled out a faded manila folder. In 2011, another girl filed a complaint about Trevor. Case vanished. In 2015, same story. This time the file was marked incomplete testimony. But I saw those witnesses. I cleaned the whole way outside the interview room. The girls came out crying. Nothing ever came of it. He looked directly at the jury. You can pretend this is complicated, but it's not. They counted on you not paying attention, on people like me staying invisible. A beat of silence hung thick in the air. Then Mott spoke, voice colder now. And what of your own history, Mr. Raines? One might wonder about a man who left law enforcement under mysterious circumstances. Care to explain? Carl didn't flinch. I had a stroke on the job. They called it early retirement. Gave me a plaque. That was the end of that. Mott pushed harder. But you never returned to the force. Why? Carl's voice lowered. Because I couldn't unsee what I saw. I cleaned up messes a law made. Covered for people I couldn't live with protecting. He looked down, just for a moment. I thought I was done. Until I saw a boy arrested for a crime he didn't commit, and no one cared enough to ask questions. Back in the hallway, during recess, Carl leaned against the wall, a quiet ache in his spine. Nia approached, holding a cup of coffee she'd bought him from the corner cafe. You okay? She asked. Getting old, Carl said, taking the cup. But yay. They're calling you a hero online, she added softly. People are reposting your testimony, saying you saved my brother's life. He shook his head. I didn't save him. I just told the truth. Your love, your fight, your persistence, you're the reason he made it through. Nia's eyes welled. You could have disappeared, Carl, but you didn't. I've spent most of my life being ignored. This time, I made it work for me. He glanced through the window at the courtroom. Now let's finish this. The final day of testimony came with storms outside the courthouse, thunder rattling the glass as a verdict neared. Carl had delivered the evidence. Other witnesses had come forward, girls who had been silenced before. Madison's best friend, a hesitant voice trembling into a microphone, had confirmed that Madison was terrified of Trevor Voss, that she had planned to speak out, and had told Judge Holloway. Holloway, now suspended, faced his own charges. And Trevor? He never spoke. Not once. Just sat there, hollow-eyed, his arrogance stripped away, replaced with the haunted stillness of a man caught in the very web he thought he spun. When the jury foreman stood, you could feel the entire room holding its breath. On the count of murder in the first degree, he said, we find the defendant guilty. Gasps, cries, a bang of the gavel. Carl exhaled, long and slow. The cameras caught him leaving the courthouse that day. Same old uniform, same slow walk. But people stopped him now, not to ask directions or complain about a spill, but to thank him, to shake his hand. Someone even called him Mr. Ains. A reporter tried to shove a microphone in his face. Carl, do you have anything to say to the public? He paused, considered, then turned to the camera. Don't ignore the quiet ones, he said. We see more than you think. And with that, he walked down the steps and into the rain. The janitor no one listened to had cleaned up more than floors. He'd cleaned out a system. And this time, everyone was watching. If the story moved you, surprised you, or made you see things differently, there's more where that came from. I share real and fictional true crime narratives that spotlight the unheard, the underestimated, and the overlooked. So if you believe stories can challenge assumptions and spark change, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. The next case might just make you question everything.